Hello, Ebusianfo. I heard Chaco Sela TV, CSTV. Me dini. Say na first time I will show you video. Mpacho subscribe it, like it, na share. Your target this month, August, and say you person 30 subscribers because your channel no e new. Say you 17 subscribers. Mumboy, mo subscribe it, na mo like it, na mo share. Na you do meet your target. And I say me na dey be area we. Sammy Gyamfi, CEO of Goldbod, one response to Afenyo Markin, the minority leader in Ghana Parliament. Me pese me kasa bebre. Mo de mo man yenko na ya yenko tie response no. Every Sammy Gyamfi any press conference. Yeah, your comment there, your assembly account, but mo fan to comment section. Na you be reply. Me da once.
Independent state institution, independent constitutional body, when its findings do not suit their mischievous narratives. I invite you, the media, you who are the fourth estate of the realm, to check the veracity of this claim with the Auditor General, and you will come to the conclusion that officials of the Auditor General were given unhindered access to all relevant information in the conduct of their audit of the 2025 financials of the Ghana Goldbod. All documents requested by them were supplied, and all queries raised by them in their management letter were satisfactorily answered. This is why not a single, and I repeat, not a single adverse audit finding was made by the Auditor General in its 2025 audited report on the Goldbod, not on imaginary or hallucinatory losses, not on procurement breaches or breaches of the Public Financial Management Act. Not a single adverse finding was made against the Goldbod in the report of the Auditor General on our accounts for the year 2025. The media, I humbly submit, must not condone and entertain the deliberate propagation of lies in the face of glaring evidence to the contrary. Now, friends from the media, after adducing these indisputable findings of the Auditor General to puncture the lie that the Goldbod made losses in 2025, Afenyo Markin and his associates quickly abandoned this line of attack and have now sought refuge in the recently published IMF report on the Bank of Ghana's Standard Credit Facility, in which the IMF reported that the Bank of Ghana recorded a loss of $1.7 billion under its domestic gold purchase program in 2025. Their position has now conveniently changed from the old false narrative that the Goldbod made losses to the new false narrative, which is that the Goldbod is responsible for losses incurred by the Bank of Ghana under the domestic gold purchase program. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing could be further from the truth. First, nowhere in the under-referenced IMF reports is Goldbod accused by the IMF as having caused the losses reported to have been incurred by the Bank of Ghana under the domestic gold purchase program. I challenge Afenyo Markin to point to any page, paragraph, sentence, phrase, or punctuation mark in the said reference reports of the IMF where the Goldbod was accused by the IMF as the entity responsible for losses incurred by the Bank of Ghana. In summary, ladies and gentlemen, what the IMF report states is that Bank of Ghana incurred losses through the sale of gold under its domestic gold purchase program of $400 million in the year 2024 and $1.7 billion in the year 2025. And that the 2025 loss of $1.7 billion was as a result of, I'm quoting the IMF verbatim, the scaling up of the domestic gold purchase program. not incompetence or mismanagement. According to the IMF, that loss was as a result of the scaling up, the expansion of the program. The IMF also stated that these accounting losses partly reflect valuation effects. In particularizing what the IMF considers to be components of this loss, the IMF listed 3 things, which included fees paid to the Goldbod under the domestic gold purchase program. This is the true context within which the name of the Goldbod featured relative to losses under the DGPP in that reference IMF reports. So I want to read the relevant portions of that report, because most of the times they come in the media and they say the IMF has said that Goldbod has made a loss of 1.7 billion, and nobody questions them to point out which part of the IMF report said that. They say that the IMF says that Goldbod is the reason for the loss, and nobody questions them to provide the proof. And we are all talking about IMF report, IMF report. The fact checkers must get to work. What does this IMF report say? Now let's first of all start with the seat review on the ECF, that report published by the IMF just a few weeks ago. And the provision in that report on domestic good purchase program can be found on page 27, paragraph 50. This is what the IMF said. The domestic good purchase program weighed on the financial sustainability of the BOG. The DGPP, which is the short form of domestic good purchase program, on which the BOG relied to accumulate reserves to intermediate effects to the private sector, has generated losses of 22 billion, which is 1.5% of GDP in 2025. A government cost-sharing agreement at end 2025 involving the transfer of bonds with a par value of 5 billion cedis in March 2026 resulted in the breach of the ceiling on BOG claims on the central government and public entities at the end of December 2025 and end March 2026. In July 2026, the BOG Goldbod and the government signed a memorandum of understanding formalizing the transfer of the domestic gold purchase program activities from the BOG to Goldbod and eliminating related BOG quasi-fiscal risk. An external auditing firm is conducting a special audit of the domestic gold purchase program from its inception, and the inception is 2021, whose results should be available in 2026 quarter 3. Domestic gold purchase program related losses coupled with high cost of OP market operations and exchange rate valuation losses resulting from CD appreciation worsened the BOG's negative equity position to 6.7% of GDP. This is all they said about domestic gold purchase program. Nowhere in this report is Goldbod accused as having caused any loss incurred by Bank of Ghana. The second and last is the IMF report on selected issues, which was published on the 4th of August. Paragraph 13 of that report speaks about the domestic gold purchase program, and that is what it says. DGPP operations have generated significant losses for BOG. Losses in 2024. So if you are watching me, you should be asking yourself whether there was Goldbod in 2024. Losses in 2024 were equivalent to almost $400 million, 0.5% of GDP, 1/3 of which were related to gold for oil. In 2025, the significant scaling up of domestic gold purchase operations led to losses of over $1.7 billion. So the IMF tells you what led to the loss. They are saying the significant scaling up of the program. It is there, black and white. Then, almost entirely related to G4R dowry purchases. This amounted to a loss of 17% of the value of dowry gold sold by the BOG. Losses accrued on gold trace are a combination of service. This was the only reference to the Goldbod here. So listen, losses accrued on gold trace are a combination of service and asset fees paid to Goldbod, discounts on goods sold to off-takers, and most importantly, exchange rate losses from the spread between Forest Bureau rates paid to purchase gold and the CD reference rate used for BOG accounting. Survey data suggests that Ghanaian ASGM prices are among the highest in the region. These accounting losses partly reflect valuation effects rather than economic cost. Blah, blah, blah. These are the relevant portions. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the words of the IMF. Not to suggest that the words of the IMF are sacrosanct, but it is important for us not to attribute to the IMF what they have not said. They have not said that the Goldbod is the one that caused the Bank of Ghana to lose $1.7 billion, as I have clearly demonstrated to you. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a call for a parliamentary probe, and I've already stated on public record that I'm waiting with bated breath for Afenyo Markin's invitation. And I don't know why he's delaying and holding press conferences when, as minority leader, he can get the Public Accounts Committee to summon me tomorrow or today, and I will appear. I saw him dabbling in some confusion about standing orders of parliament and the fear that the majority may oppose a call for a probe into this matter. Well, I have, in all humility, reached out to the new majority leader in Parliament, Honorable James Agaga, and I pleaded with him that even if Afenyo delays in extending this invitation, he should extend the invitation to me. And I'm ready to come tomorrow. You don't need any special motion. You don't need any special order by the Speaker. Just get Public Accounts Committee to invite us. And come and sit down there and come and demonstrate to the whole nation where the Goldbod made losses or how the Goldbod is to blame for losses made by another institution. We are waiting for that. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I want to urge you, our friends in the media, in all humility and the Ghanaian public, to hold Afenyo Markin and others who make allegations about Goldbod losses to the strictest standard of proof, particularly in the light of the detailed facts I have placed before you today. Let me state that the persistent noise from people like him does not arise from any genuine quest for accountability or any sincere desire to interrogate the operations of the Goldbod. Rather, it is a part of a calculated smear campaign aimed at undermining the significant contribution Goldbod is making to the economic transformation agenda of President Mohammed's administration. The likes of Afenyo Markin simply cannot reconcile themselves with the transformational work of Goldbod because they appreciate the important role it has played in the historic appreciation of the Ghana cedi and the significant strengthening of Ghana's international reserves, developments that are contributing to improved economic conditions for the Ghanaian people. Afenyo Markin's continuing antics, and I want you to listen to me very carefully here. Afenyo Markin's continuing antics must therefore be seen for what they are: a desperate smear campaign by persons who have specialized in sophistry and political blackmail in pursuit of selfish ends. These are devious extortionists who will come at you with lies to tarnish your reputation in the hope that you will fold and settle for what they call, quote, compulsory arbitration and oil their palms. Well, this time around, they found their own target. The Ghanaian people deserve serious public discourse founded on facts, evidence, truth, and not endless recycling of falsehoods in the hope that repetition will lend them credibility and turn fiction to facts. Goldbod will remain focused on his mandate. We will continue to account transparently for our stewardship, and we will not be distracted from the important work of creating value for the Ghanaian people from the exploitation of the good resources of our beloved nation. Thank you very much for your attention. Whether I'm jittery, well, I believe you should know me better. my good brother Felix says something. He says politics is a contact sport. And so when you are involved in politics, you are involved in boxing. You should be ready for tackles, you should be ready for punches. And some of us are vaccinated against political mischief. We've taken the vaccine, so we are not worried at all. But what I want to say is this. If the one under whose tenure has board chairman as ECG, you know, where ECG recorded a loss of 8.2 billion, is not facing any onerous bail terms, then how can Sammy Gyamfi, under whose tenure the Goldbod has exported 170 tons of gold through former channels and brought into this country over 17 billion United States dollars in 1.5 years, face onerous bail terms? Under your tenure, not a gram of gold produced in Ghana was refined in Ghana. Today, over 9 metric tons just this year of gold we have bought refined in Ghana. We are changing the value addition story. So you see, such statements are reckless. They are what I call the fanciful efficiencies of, you know, of a palm wine bar. You take it as comic relief. And it is very sad. You see, when we say this, he says we are not insulting him. This is somebody occupying the seat once occupied by the Venerable J.H. Mensah, the Venerable Papa Uzu Ankoma, or Seiche Mensah Bonsu. Look at the depth and the substance of these personalities. When they rose to speak on Parliament, look at the command they commanded across the aisle. And look at how this seat has now been so bastardized and depraved by a noisemaker who cannot even read and research and get his facts right. So I will go to prison in his brain, and I will have onerous bail terms in his brain. I'm not afraid of any intimidating tactics, because we are serving Ghana in good conscience, and our resource and posterity will speak for us. Thank you very much. The losses we are talking about as having been made by Bank of Ghana, are they really losses? Well, to the accountants, they are losses. That is why the IMF calls them accounting losses. But an accounting loss is not an economic loss. But because we are discussing this within the context of audited financial accounts of an organization, you can call it a loss. It's an accounting loss. But understanding that is important. That loss is not because of a fee, a lawful fee paid for assay or for services rendered, which are not free services. Neither is it because of a 1.2% discount offered the eventual buyer, the off-taker. Those are not the reasons. That is where we think the IMF got it, mischaracterized the issues. Those are what you call baseline program cost. Okay, but when you're talking about the accounting loss, I would say it's not even 50%. Over 80% of it is the difference between the Forest Bureau rate at which gold is bought and the fact that in Bank of Ghana's books, the dollar proceeds will be converted at Bank of Ghana rate. So today, let's say Forest Bureau rate. The Forest Bureau rate is not a paro rate. It's not a black market rate. It's a lawful rate because they are regulated by BOJ. Let's say today, hypothetically speaking, because I've not checked, you need, say, 12.5 cedis to get $1 in a Forest Bureau. Under the domestic gold purchase program, agents of the Bank of Ghana were to buy it at this, we call it market rate or retail rate. Bank of Ghana is the one that says the agent should buy it at that rate. It is not the agent who decides the rate at which it will buy gold for a principal. You understand? But if the gold is sold and the dollar proceeds hits Bank of Ghana's account, the accountant at Bank of Ghana, in converting dollars into cedis, because the account must be in cedis, will not multiply it by 12.5, which is Forest Bureau rate. You will multiply it by Bank of Ghana rate, which will be around 11.1. So that book loss, you can call it that, accounts for 80 to 90% of what we are talking about. And we have explained this. The bank itself has explained this, okay? If Goldbod was the one implementing this program, we would not have accepted this on our books, because we would have insisted for Parliament to pass the right laws that will allow the right treatment to be given that conversion. But because Bank of Ghana is a central bank, and all central banks are bound to operate with their own rates, their hands are tied. So that is the dilemma, or that is a difficult situation the bank found itself. And they knew this right from the inception of the program in 2021. This is not a new phenomenon. This is not something coming up today. Like I told you, in 2024, they were buying gold at as much as 17 cedis to the dollar. You understand? Even in 2025, the rates came down because the cedi appreciated, so the dollar came down, so things were better. Imagine we're buying gold at 17 cedis to the dollar at the quantity we bought and at those prices. Imagine what the figures would have been. So that is what it is. It is not an economic loss, it's an accounting loss. The IMF itself calls it valuation effects. And if you want to know the meaning of valuation effects, just Google it. I Googled it now. AI tells me that valuation effects refers to changes in the value of existing international assets and liabilities caused by shifts in exchange rates and asset prices. So you bought something at one exchange rate, the exchange rate you used to convert is different. That is what really the chunk of it is. Okay, and not because somebody there at the Bank of Ghana is incompetent or has stolen money. But let me just add this. He said people say that because of the role I played in opposition and all that. I'm not the only person who played a role in bringing the NDC to power. And I am not those who think that because of the role I played in opposition, I should be insulated or immune to criticism. Public officers must uphold the principles of probity and accountability. That is the underlying principle of the 1992 Constitution and a very key tenet of value of the National Democratic Congress that I belong to. So we embrace and welcome constructive criticism. When Kojo Oponkroma, for example, criticizes Goldbod, I may disagree with him and say that he's not being factual. But it's not personal, because he's making an intellectual argument. Okay, if somebody like Abner Sarion say criticizes Goldbod, you can see that poor woman, he doesn't have the information. It's not personal. It's not personal. She doesn't have the information. You understand? If Anta criticizes Goldbod, all of them have criticized us in the past. We've not done a press conference. It is their entitlement. They are entitled to the opinion because they don't make it personal. You've not heard any of them talking about, hey, any bail conditions, they're best so. You understand? But when you hear that guy speaks, you know that there is a problem. This is personal. So we are not saying that we are above criticism. No, we accept and embrace criticism because it is at the heart of public service.